everybody, it's Gina from Orchid and Opal Jewelry and Beads, and I'm here today to show you how I'm going to make this two-strand necklace. So this is going to be another technique of the week video because it's something that you can use for all different types of applications, not just to learn a tutorial on this one specific necklace, but it's going to have techniques that will probably help you with any kind of bead stringing, using bead stringing wire, how to lay out your beads, and how to get things to lay correctly when you have a multi-strand necklace. So I was going to actually make this same necklace with silver findings anyway, and I was about to go ahead and make it, and I just figured, well, why not just film it? Because there's going to be a lot of tips and tricks for you guys, especially geared toward new beaders. I'm not targeting you beaders who have been beading for years and stringing for years. You probably won't learn much, but as far as like new beaders who are learning new techniques and want to know some basic stringing, this video will be for you. So let's get started. This necklace is going to be about 18 inches, and the first step to make a necklace like this is to not only gather your materials or make sure you have the materials you need, and you'll notice that for this particular necklace I'm using these really big closed jump rings, and I get asked a lot, where do you buy them, what are they called, what are they? And I'll be honest, I had a hard time too when I first started beading finding these connectors, but you will find them mostly under the keywords jewelry connectors and closed jump rings. This particular size right here is about 15 millimeters, so I find that if you search for that particular size while you're searching for closed jump rings, you're more likely to find what you're looking for. I got these several months back on an Etsy shop website, and I have no idea if they're even still available anymore. But I do have all kinds of product links below in the information section for products you can find on Amazon, which I know most of you have probably shopped on Amazon and feel comfortable shopping on Amazon. I'm not saying you have to buy them there, but I just wanted to let you know there are links to show you examples of where you can find these. And of course, you can find them at all kinds of online bead stores. I don't do much shopping in person anymore as far as at local craft stores, but perhaps you could find them there. But if you don't want to buy them on Amazon, because you know the selection can be hit or miss, you can just do a simple Google search for 15 millimeter round jewelry connectors or closed jump rings, and that should help at least get you started in the right direction. So not only will you need some of those if you want to make the same style, but you'll also need some basic jump rings, like the 6 millimeter size. You'll also see I'm going to introduce you to something that I love called wire guardians, and we'll get more into that. You'll also want to have some crimp beads and crimp tubes, and you can see all those things right here below. I have the silver ones laid out for us. We go through the necklace, and I'll talk a little bit more about how I'm using them. And then of course your beads, and I also have some spacer beads. You can use any variety of beads you want. Your necklace could look completely different than the one I'm showing you here, but you can apply the same techniques to the video today to a lot of multi-strand necklace or even single strand necklace beading, and then we're going to connect it to a chain. So that's what we're going to do today. And like I said, after you have all your materials purchased or on hand, you're going to want to lay out your beads to decide how you want your necklace to look. Now this necklace, including the chain, I could have made it really, really long. I decided to make it about an 18-inch necklace and then add about a 2 or 3 inch extender chain on the back. That's totally up to you. What we're really going to be focusing on today is this front part here. And what's also nice is you can actually make these in advance and then add them to chain later. Or you can move them around. In other words, if you wanted to disassemble your jewelry later, you could take off these central parts. You could put them on different chain later. You know, that's kind of the nice thing about it. And that's why I'm going to get into why I'm using these jump rings in addition to the wire guardians. So just some things to throw out there, some things I've learned just through my experience, not through watching others, but just through learning what works for me. So I thought maybe some of these things would work for you. So let's go ahead and play with some beads. We'll get started. The first strand on the top, just to let you know, I measured it and it's 5 inches from wire guardian to wire guardian. And this bottom strand is 7 inches from guardian to guardian, or from here to here. So if you want your necklace to kind of lay like that, let me get a better, it'll be like that on the neck. You're going to want about a 2-inch difference if you're making a 2-strand necklace from here to here. Obviously, if you made the longer strand shorter, it's going to be up on it like that. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. It all depends on the look you're going for. So for what I was going for, I wanted this kind of a look right here, and that's about a 2-inch difference per strand, which is why I absolutely love using a bead board like this. If you don't have one, if you're a new beader, I'd make it a goal to get one if you think you're going to be doing more beading, because it's a great way to lay out your projects. So first, I want to lay out, you can choose any row you want. I'm going to go ahead and lay out the bottom row, which I'm just going to duplicate the same pattern that I have here just for ease of the video, and plus I wanted to make one in silver anyway. So let's see, these are called Dalmatian Jasper. These are a gemstone bead that I just purchased. I actually got them on Golden Age Beads. GoldenAgeBeads.com, an online store. I shop all over the place online, and they are an 8mm size, and like I said, you can use any beads you want. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them on my bottom row, so that's what I want to have in front of me. So here's 10. And then I want to have 5 of these drops. These are black onyx drops that I received, or actually not received, but purchased from the Beadbox Bargains website. They had a really good deal on them, and I snapped up a strand in a mystery gemstone grab bag, and I'm so pleased that I got these. And we're going to lay these out kind of like this. It'll be a little awkward because those beads are not going to just lay in those rows for you, but it'll at least lay out the general idea of how you want your necklace to look. And then we have in between those some silver spacers. I don't have many silver spacers left, so I'll need to get some more, but we should have enough to do this video. And then I have some little black beads in between, and I do have enough to do those on the bottom row. I don't have enough to do them on the top row, but I do have some little 3mm matte, I think they're matte, I can't really tell with my lighting at the moment, but 3mm black fire polish beads that I'm going to put in between instead that will work just as well. Okay, so I'm going to lay out those little black beads in between these that are right here, how I want them on the bottom row. And I have just about enough to mimic the necklace that I did in gold. That only leaves me with 2 more out of my container that I had. And I think these came from a $1 bead box subscription. So some of you may recognize those beads. Now let's lay out the top row. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the Dalmatian Jasper on the top row as well. So let's start there. Start with your biggest beads when you're laying out your design. That's usually a good tip. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then, like I said, I ran out of those other black beads, so I'm going to be putting some little 3mm fire polish beads in between instead on the top row as our filler. And I don't have to worry much about the measurements or about how long these strands are right now, because I've already made a necklace and I'm using pretty much the same beads, so I know that it's gonna be the right length. But if you're making these types of necklaces with all different types of beads, you haven't made one before, you'll want to just play around and make sure you have enough of a difference in size between the length of the top row and the bottom row that when it curves around the neck, it's gonna lay nicely and not be really weird, like, you know, like one part dangling way too far down and one part way up here, this part's too small, this part's too big, you know, that kind of thing. So you'll want to play around with it and make sure your lengths are good. And what we can do now is start stringing. I'm not going to set my little silver spacer beads in between these right now because they're so tiny and they're just going to roll everywhere. So I'm just going to pick those up as I need them. Going to set them in that little pocket of the bead board, which is so helpful. And we're going to string this section with some bead stringing wire, and what I'm using today is a Beadalon 7-strand. That refers to how many little strands are inside the one strand of wire that are braided together to give it strength. And it's called Bright Brilliant. It's a silver color, and that's what we're going to use today. So I got that on Amazon, and again, links to pretty much all the products I'm using are below. Not that I necessarily got all these products on Amazon, but it gives you an idea of what they are so that you can take a look and see more of the product details. So the way I do it is I just kind of eyeball how much wire I'm going to need. I like to kind of lay it over one of my strands. We'll start out with the top strand, and I like to leave about 2 inches on each side to allow me enough for putting through the wire guardians and looping back through a few beads to make it secure. So because this strand is 5 inches, I'm not going to go out and measure, but you'll want about 9 inches if you're adding about 2 inches to either side. So I'm going to just go ahead and cut that, and we'll get started stringing our first strand. So the first thing I do is I'm going to pick up one of my little silver crimp beads like this. I'm going to put it on my bead stringing wire. I'm going to take one of my wire guardians and I'm going to put my bead stringing wire through one of the holes on one side of the wire guardian like that. And then can bring this down a little bit to give you some more room to work with. And then I'm going to curl the wire over and loop it back down through the wire guardian loop on the other side and pull it. So our wire is following the path of the wire guardian. Now, I want to mention to you at this point, while you still have this part open right in the middle here, you could, if you wanted to, string on your jewelry connector, if you're using one, like that, and then feed this wire through your crimp bead and close it off like that. You could do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm choosing to go ahead and close up my wire guardian and strand without doing that, and then I'm going to add this to the wire or the jewelry connector with a jump ring. And the reason I'm doing that is just for some flexibility and also for movement. I find that if I add them to a jump ring and then to the wire, I keep saying wire, the jewelry connector, that there's a little bit more movement and it just tends to lay a little bit better. So I've been asked about how to get the strands to lay properly where they're not like twisting over each other and stuff like that. And that's just something I found works best for me, is to not just string it directly on, but attach them with the jump ring. So that might help you. Just try it out and see. And so we're at the point where we can put our little end of our wire here through our crimp bead. Okay, so we've got both ends through the crimp bead. We've got our wire fed over the loop here, just like that. And we're at the point where we can actually crimp this. So here's another tool that I love. This is a 4-in-1 crimper, and it's excellent for crimping these little crimp beads correctly and getting them nice and tight on the wire. And again, I have a link to that below if you're interested in what this product is. And to do this, first you're gonna see this little sharp triangle and this little dent in here. You want to get your crimp bead to sit right in there first and pull your wire so it's not sticking up, but pull it nice and taut against that loop. And you're going to make a little indent first. See that? Made it a little V. And then, depending on the size crimp bead you're using, you'll put it in one of these little divots here, and it's going to fold it over onto itself. So it just naturally will go into one of those little divots. And we're just going to let it roll over top of itself like that, and then I'm going to pinch it on the end where it's flat and make sure it's nice and tight, just like that. Okay, so it's nice and tight. We're going to worry about putting on our crimp cover later. You can do that at the end. You don't have to do that right now, but right now the main point is that this is nice and secure. It's not going anywhere, and you're ready to start stringing some beads. So starting from one side, I'm just going to pick up some beads. And I actually think I want one of these on the end. And you're going to have to feed this extra little piece of jewelry wire through some of the beads as you're stringing them. So instead of clipping it off right here, you're just going to string it through and let the beads sit on top of it. And it does fit. The doubled up strand fits through these, even these tiny 3mm fire polished beads, no problem. And they're just going to end up hiding that extra little piece of wire. Okay, we're almost done. I'm dropping a lot of beads because it's kind of awkward to do while I'm filming. Hopefully you won't drop as many beads as I am. I love this Dalmatian jasper so much. I was actually thinking when I took it out of the package, it reminds me of like cookie dough. And then one of my viewers, she pointed out the same thing, so I thought that was funny that we were both thinking that it looks like cookie dough. So now I can't look at it without thinking of that. So it's funny. Alright, so we're at the end of this strand, and we're going to finish our strand off just like we did here. So first we want to string on one of our crimp beads, and then we want to string on one side of our crimp cover. I'm sorry. one side of our wire guardian. And you see we have a little piece left that we can swing over and put through the other hole here. And you also want to feed it through. It gets a little awkward. You also want to feed it through that crimp bead when you're coming back around. And by the way, don't like crease these strands. When you're making this, don't crease them because this is wire and it will get bent out of shape. So you want to keep it nice and loose and fluid. Don't like pinch it together because you don't want the wire to get a weird bend in it. Okay, so I've got it fed through, and it gets a little difficult if you don't have a whole lot on this side, but I'm just going to put it through, or try to put it through one of these little beads, and I'm going to take a pair of pliers and hold on to that so it doesn't slip back in. I'm going to pull this so the wire's nice and taut. Switch hands because I'm right-handed. Okay, so just gonna keep one hand on this side and then pull the wire down with the other. And I just want to talk about tension for a second. You don't want this to be like super tight. Like, you want it to be tight in the sense that you don't want gaps in between your beads when you're done. But when you crimp these crimp beads and add the little crimp covers, it's going to tighten these strands a little bit more. So I have this super tight right now. I'm just going to give it a tiny bit, and I mean a tiny bit, more slack. So that way when I close down the crimp beads and covers, like this isn't all wonky and tight and like twisting because it doesn't have enough room. So I just wanted to mention that because that's pretty important. Just leave yourself a couple little like millimeters of space. Don't tighten the heck out of it. And then when you add your crimps, it's going to tighten just a little bit more. So again, I just using my crimper tool that I love. Use it all the time. And I just crimped that down. You can see it's already going, the end of the wire is already going through this little black bead. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim my wire right at that point where it's coming out of the black bead. If you're able to feed that end through more, feel free to do that. I didn't have a whole lot left on this side. I don't like to waste a lot of bead stringing wire, and I was working with what I have, and with that crimp right there and everything, I feel comfortable it's going to be strong enough. So this is our first strand. We're going to do pretty much the exact same thing with the larger strand. So let's set that down, and then we will get another strand of wire and make our bottom row. Alright, so let's start our other strand. So once again, we're going to pick up one of these crimp beads and put our wire through one end of our wire guardian and loop it over and back down through the crimp bead. It's going to look like that, and then we're going to pull this up a little bit, and we are going to have a little tail that's sticking out so that we can secure that underneath some beads. So pull that to where you're happy with it, and then we will crimp. By the way, if you don't have special crimping tools, it's okay. You can use regular jewelry making pliers and just try your best to get them nice and secure. I don't know why this isn't focusing. Oh my goodness. So just use your jewelry making pliers to flatten out your crimp bead. Okay, so we're gonna make our little V right there, and then we're gonna go like that and flatten it on top of itself. And I like to take the tip and just give it an extra flattening, just like that. Alright, so now we're ready to string on our other beads. So we're going to start from one end, work our way over just like we did before. Okay, so our strand looks good. Let's pick up another crimp bead and another guardian and finish up this side. So I put the crimp bead on, I'm going through one side of the guardian, and then I'm going to loop it back around and go back through my crimp bead and through a couple of beads like that. And again, being careful not to pinch any of the wire so it doesn't have any funny bends in it. And you can either hold this end with your fingers while you pull on this end of the strand, or just hold on with some pliers. And again, leave yourself a little bit of space like that so your strand is not extremely tight. That way when you do close your crimp bead and your crimp covers, the strand still has a certain amount of movement. Okay. There we go. Just pinching that. Feels nice and tight. And now I'm going to clip this off like that. And I'm just pulling these down a little bit so it's even. There we go. So we have both of our strands complete like that, and we're ready to attach them to our jewelry links or closed jump rings and our chain. So at this point, like, I just wanted to give an example. Like, you can make these centers of your necklaces up in advance if you wanted to. So I think that's kind of cool. Like, you don't have to finish everything at once. If you're on a roll with doing strands like this, you can just get them ready to put on to your chain and accessories. Or if you make it and a year later you don't like exactly the links you used, or maybe you have some new fancy links or new chain, maybe you want it on sterling silver chain and you had it on just a plated brass chain, things like that, then this gives you the flexibility to change it out a little bit later if you wanted to. So take a jump ring first of all and open it up, and you open it up of course by twisting it like that, not by pulling them apart. And go ahead and just attach one of your strands to that, and then attach one of your closed jump rings. Take another pair of pliers because I like to close them up with 2 pliers and just twist it back. There we go. So you can see that we have one attached, and we're going to attach the other side. So again, just opened up a jump ring, putting it on, attaching our link, closing the jump ring back. And then I'm going to kind of hold it up like this and make sure it's falling nicely and get it all straightened out. and then that'll be ready for you to attach this other strand. So pick up another jump ring and open it up and just pop that onto that strand right underneath that wire guardian, and then right in front of the longer strand, because that's exactly how you want it to lay, and then close it up. Okay, so there you go. And now we're going to do the same thing over here. So we're going to open up this jump ring. See how this is laying. We're just going to go ahead and attach that there and attach our link on this side and close our jump ring just like that. I'm going to hold it up and see how it lays. It lays wonderfully. There's plenty of movement. There's plenty of room between this strand and this strand. And besides putting on our crimp covers, which are right here, we'll be ready to put on our chain and finish our necklace. And it's as simple as that. And you can really use this technique with so many different things. So let's go ahead and put our crimp covers on. And I don't know how others do this. There's probably other ways, but I just hold my crimp cover in between my pliers like this, and I just pop it right over the crimp bead best I can. Hopefully y'all can see that. And then I just close it by pinching it together. And do this gently so you don't flatten your crimp cover. You want it to stay rounded so that when it's closed it looks like a bead. Okay, so we have our covers on that bottom strand. Let's go ahead and pop our crimp covers on the top strand. Just closing them up gently, and we want them to be nice and rounded and look like a little bead up there, like you're not even trying to hide anything, like you just strung a bead on. Alright, so there we go. So this is what we have, and it's ready to be put on chain. I've already cut 2 pieces of chain that are ready to be attached. So let me get a couple of jump rings. Okay, so depending on how you want your length of your necklace, go ahead and cut some chain, and you don't even have to cut 2 pieces. You can even loop one single piece from here to the other side and then snip it right in the center. That's another little trick, but since I was filming this video, I just went ahead and had it ready and cut it. So I'm just opening another jump ring, putting it through my connector, and then putting this through the end of my chain. And this is a, in case you're interested, a flat cable chain. It is about a 2 by 1.5 millimeter size. It is silver plated brass. You can find them all over the place. I happen to get a bulk amount on eBay. I do have a link to some similar chain on Amazon in the information section below if you're interested in that. But you can find chain all over the place. There's not one specific place that I recommend getting chain. I get it all over the place. It just depends on the deal. I do suggest that if you have a lot of trouble with your chain tarnishing, then you probably want to go for like stainless steel. It's not as bright silver as chain like this. It's a little bit darker, but some people really have a lot of trouble with their silver plated brass tarnishing. I really don't have a lot of issues with it, but I think it depends on your location, where you live, what's in your air and water, etc. There's a lot of factors. And also probably your own skin composition, makeup, that kind of thing. So anyway, if you have trouble, maybe you want to kind of do more with stainless steel chain. Just a tip, because I've been asked that before too. So I'm just attaching a jump ring on this end, and we're going to attach our lobster claw. And close this back, just like that. And then I also got some of these pre-cut extenders on eBay too a while back. Pretty good deal. And I just bought a bag of those. Makes my life a little bit easier. I like the size of them. They're a little bit bigger than this chain, so if you do want to use an extender, it's easy to clip a lobster claw on that. So I'm just going to put my other jump ring through this end, and then also through the end of my extender, and close this. Okay, so we have our necklace all set. I love the way it looks. It hangs really, really nice. And I usually add a little embellishment on the end of my chain, which I'll do off camera to save a little bit more time, but I'm just going to put one of my little leftover black beads on a head pin and loop the head pin over just like that and attach it to the end. Just gives it a nice little touch. So that's it for how I made this 2-strand Dalmatian jasper necklace, how I get things to lay nicely, and how I use wire guardians, how I use these jewelry connectors. All sorts of things were covered in this video today. So I hope it helped you guys, especially you all who are newer to beading, learn some simple techniques and tricks about how to use these items, how to put your pieces together, and how to get them to come out nicely like that. So thanks as usual so much, you guys, for watching. I really appreciate it. Feel free to hit that bell at the top if you want to be notified of more of my videos. I have lots more to come, lots more tutorials, subscription box unboxings, finished jewelry updates, and lots more. And feel free to leave me a comment or a question below, because I love to hear from you guys and I do respond to you, and I really appreciate it. So everybody, I hope you have a wonderful day and happy beading! If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I would also love for you to follow me on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, and Etsy. Orchid and Opal Jewelry. Thanks for watching!